With injuries mounting in the bullpen, the Minnesota Twins should move Kendry Rojas to be a full-time reliever for the rest of the season.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Twins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm CJ Baumgartner, Twins writer for Zone Coverage, and a lifelong Twins fan just like you. On today's show, we are going to break down why Ryan Kreidler should literally be starting at shortstop every single game until Kalin Culpepper gets here. We also talk about why Kendry Rojas could still be a starting pitcher for the Twins this season. We make that case as well. But our top story today, it's the official position of Locked On Twins that Kendry Rojas should be moved to be a full-time reliever for the rest of the season due to injuries in the bullpen, mainly with Anthony Banda, who yesterday the Minnesota Twins moved to the 15-day IL with a left lat strain. They called up Cody Clemens to make this take his spot on the roster. And Matthew Leach of MLB.com has reported that Banda is going to miss months, not weeks, with this injury. And I don't know if you guys know this, but like 2 months from now is September. And so if he has to miss 2+ months, that's pretty much the rest of the season. There's a chance we don't see Banda pitch for the rest of 2026. Now, in yesterday's show, we talked about why it was unnecessary to bring him into the ninth inning. We talked about Shelton's use of the bullpen and how it's not been ideal. Go to yesterday's show. There's the full breakdown talking about the bullpen moves and Derek Shelton and how he can be better in that aspect. We did a full breakdown on yesterday's show, so go back and watch that discussion because I want to talk a lot about Kendry Rojas today. But I do just want to reiterate, this was completely preventable. Bringing back in Banda, who, by the way, has been your second, maybe third, but still like one of your best relievers this season in a bullpen that's been bad overall. He's been one of the lone bright spots, and why you bring him back in needlessly for him to just get hurt, and now he's out multiple months. I know hindsight is 20/20, but just let your closer come in and pitch that inning. And now you lose a reliever, and it's just tough for the Twins, which means they have a hole to fill now, not just with a reliever that you can trust in high leverage situations, which the Twins, outside of Yandres Gomez and Andrew Morris, they don't really have. But they also run into a situation where who's the top lefty in your bullpen? It's Taylor Rogers. And I think Rogers has been okay in spurts. I think his blowups have been really bad, but I think he's been okay, or maybe at least hasn't been as bad as the ERA would indicate. But that being said, he still has an ERA of 6. And you just can't trust Taylor Rogers in multiple high leverage situations as your top lefty in the bullpen. And this is where I think Kendry Rojas can step in. Because as we've learned, Taylor Rogers, while he can be effective in lower leverage spots, just probably isn't at that spot in his career anymore where you can trust him in those high leverage moments every single time. Cody Funderburk, I think we've learned as well, and we talked about him in our stock up, stock down report yesterday, so go back and listen to that full breakdown. But again, we've just learned that he's not quite this high leverage arm out of the bullpen that maybe some people thought he was capable of coming into the season, right? He just can't be your top lefty in the bullpen. And so now he gets to a spot where, okay, well, who should be your top lefty in the bullpen? Well, Kendry Rojas. And this is where the Twins have kind of been stuck in the middle on Kendry Rojas. He's been a starter at times, and he started games at times for the Twins, made one start, and I thought pitched pretty well, made some starts for AAA St. Paul. And in fact, if you look, since the Twins demoted him, which again, if we talk about pitching plans and what you're doing with guys, I don't understand why the Twins sent down Kendry Rojas at all to AAA. You'd rather just have him with the big league club. You'd rather just have him doing that. But I mean, that being said, he pitched 3 innings for St. Paul on Sunday, and he gave up 1 hit, no earned runs over that stretch, and was pretty efficient doing it all on 33 pitches. So he's a guy who's able to pitch multiple innings. I get it. But also, he's been somebody who the Twins have used out of the bullpen, but they've used him for 1 inning at times. They've used him for 3 innings at times. again, there's no clear role with Kendry Rojas, and that's Derek Shelton at the major league level, but also like that's the front office. Like, what do you want out of Kendry Rojas this season? I maintain he could be maintained this season. He should be a starting pitcher long term. But I think where my view is shifted now is you just need a left-handed reliever out of the bullpen who has some high-end stuff that you can trust. And I think putting Kendry Rojas in that spot would certainly help out as well, because you already know that he can pitch at the big league level. You've already seen some of that high-end stuff. You've already seen what he can do. And especially with the fastball, Kendry Rojas right now has thrown his fastball about 40% of the time. He's been pretty heavy on that. He throws a slider as well about 28.5% of the time. And then, about 16 and 14% for the changeup and sinker, respectively. And with the fastball, he throws it at 96 miles an hour. So if you can get him, and I know he's basically been throwing as a reliever, but if you convert him now, instead of a long relief to a, hey, we are going to put you in late game or high leverage situations for 1 inning, maybe 1 2/3 max, 2 innings max, but 1 inning typically. Well, now you can have that fastball play up a little higher, like we've seen with Andrew Morris, who is throwing it higher. And the one you do have to worry about walks and that walk rate increasing, but I think the benefit of Rojas being able to throw that harder from a defined bullpen plan would be beneficial for him. I also think that you can get pitches like the slider to play up a little more. And by that, I mean, you can just basically lean on fastball slider as a 1-2 pitch mix, and then you can mix in the changeup and the sinker from time to time. But it can really allow you to just use the 2 pitches that Rojas is relying upon a lot at the big league level. And that way, there's not as much of a need to do that when you're only facing 4 batters. When you're, coming in these short stints, you don't have to worry about having this deep pitch mix like we've seen with Marco Raya, who's limited the pitch mix as a reliever as well. So I think if you do all that, Kendry Rojas can be a very effective reliever. And I know that I think he could be a starter long-term. But that being said, there is a world where Kendry Rojas just converts to being a full-time reliever and is like a left-handed Joan Duran, which, maybe you'd be like the pitching version of Aroldis Chapman. Chapman's the high end, but you're like in that same vein of a hard-throwing, left-handed pitcher who can come in late in games and be really good for you. And I think with Banda being gone, it opens up the spot for a lefty to be in those situations, because as much as you can use guys like Andrew Morris, guys like Yandres Gomez, and you should in those high leverage situations, there's just going to be times where you're facing a part of the lineup that has left-handed hitters that you need that advantage of having a left-handed pitcher. Or you have, again, you can avoid teams from bringing in lefties off the bench or something like that. If you're worried about a certain left-handed hitter coming into the game in a big spot, you can find a way to do that. And I think Kendry Rojas being this flame-throwing reliever for the rest of the season can help. This is a Twins bullpen, by the way, coming into the week, dead last in ERA, 23rd in win probability added, and it's dragged down the pitching staff as well, because the pitching staff's ERA coming into the week was 28th in baseball. And I know the rotation has its issues. I know the rotation has its depth issues, but there are still some names you could pull from AAA. You could pull up a Ryan Gallagher to possibly make a spot starter too. Bailey Ober is on track to come back as well. You are not going to get another left-handed reliever that's going to come back this season and be useful for your team. So I think Kendry Rojas is that guy for the Minnesota Twins who can come in, be that left-handed reliever that you use in big spots, limit him to 1 inning, 2 innings max per appearance, and you can find a way to get yourself, again, that bullpen hierarchy of Gomez, Morris, and then Rojas, and you can use that as your big 3 when you need to go 7, 8, 9. You use some combination of those 3, and I think that actually, not that it's a dominant back end of the bullpen, but it's certainly one you can trust much more than the current bullpen you have right now. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about why Kendry Rojas can still be a starter. We're going to make that argument, and that's also going to be to a conversation about shortstop and why Ryan Kreidler should be playing literally every day. Just every day. It doesn't matter based on the matchup. We go into a deep dive in how the Twins can shuffle deck chairs on this outfield, on the outfield and the infield positioning charts. That's all coming up after this. The biggest stage in world soccer is here, and every match feels like it has the potential for a memorable moment. One goal can completely change the energy of a game, shift momentum, and alter the outcome in an instant. That's what makes tournament soccer so exciting, from the opening whistle to the final kick. Now, FanDuel is giving fans another reason to stay locked into every match with every goal pays. Bet on a match and get bonus bets for every goal scored in that match. More goals means more bonus bets. All you have to do is turn on your token. Let's get an example here for Team USA. So as a recording of this podcast, Team USA on FanDuel is minus 300 to score first against Bosnia in tomorrow's match. And that's what I love about these tournaments, is because you can turn on a match. I know we were talking about Team USA guy. I'm an American soccer fan. I really only care about Team USA. But there are a whole bunch of countries, a whole bunch of teams you don't normally follow, and all of a sudden one goal can change everything because the tension builds so quickly. You're invested in countries that, look, I have a tough time pronouncing, and all of a sudden I'm cheering for them and I want them to win, and I'm invested before I even realize it. And now you can benefit from each goal scored. So from the opening whistle to the final kick, let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started now. Get your daily Minnesota Twins coverage completely ad-free by joining the Everydayer Club today. Start your 7-day free trial right now and get closer to the Twins without the interruptions. Click the link in the show notes or go to lockedontwins.supercast.com to claim your free trial. Kendry Rojas can still be a solid starting pitcher for the Minnesota Twins for years to come. So it is the official position of the show that Kendry Rojas should be moved to be a reliever for the rest of the season. You can always convert him back to a starting pitcher next year, but for now, the need of keeping the bullpen together is much more important than the starting rotation, because you can find guys in AAA who can make starts for you, whereas getting that reliever is just going to be a lot harder because you need a high-end reliever, not just a body. And that is all important. But I think there is still a case to be made that Kendry Rojas can be a starting pitcher for the Minnesota Twins and be a pretty good one at that. And so it sounds like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but that is my official position. But that being said, I can make the case as well that he could be. So let's break down that option as well, because with Kendry Rojas, he has made just one start for the Twins this year. That was against Houston last month, and overall had a pretty good outing, gave up a couple runs, but still was able to give you 5 innings, and you were able to rely on him and get the win. And I think with Kendry Rojas, you see his fastball is at a +3 run value. His slider is at a -1, same with his changeup and his sinker. But if you give him more time at the big league level, he is going to figure out how to consistently get those swings and misses. If you look, the biggest put-away pitch has been his slider at 29.2% strikeout rate and a 21.9% put-away rate, whereas the fastball, again, strikeout, what pitches are you getting on the strikeout? Put-away is just the pitch that you use to get the hitter out. So again, it's been very fastball heavy. It's been very slider heavy. But that being said, the changeup at 27.3 also hangs in there as well. The sinker at 33.3%, although the sample sizes on those are a little smaller, which is why I still lean to the 4-seamer and the slider being kind of the put-away pitches for Rojas. But he still has a pitch mix that is still developing at the big league level, and nothing has been a complete train wreck. Slider, changeup, sinker, they all could be improved upon, but you have a good basis for the fastball, which is important. If you have a fastball that you don't trust, you can't be a starting pitcher. It's just really tough if you can't get a fastball that has no swing and miss movement or no ability to get hitters out, and Kendry Rojas has that. And so once he develops that pitch mix, slider, changeup, sinker, all of a sudden, or even just develops one more at the big league level, all of a sudden as a starting pitcher, you can really make that work. And I think for Kendry Rojas too, he has the ability to be a good left-handed starting pitcher, and you can develop that along with Connor Prelip. That gets you another pitcher down the road. You have in 2027, Mick Abel, Taj Bradley. That's 4 starting pitchers in your rotation you can roll with. And if you keep Joe Ryan and you keep him for next season, well, then all of a sudden that's 5 pitchers. Or Pablo Lopez comes back and you already have 5 starting pitchers lined up for next season and gives you an opportunity to build out depth, maybe sign one more veteran arm, maybe develop guys, whatever the case may be. But I think Kendry Rojas still should be considered as a starting pitcher. Even if you move him to the bullpen for this season, I still think he can be a really good starter. I think that there is things over the course of the season, even as he continues or over the course of his career, he can still be a good pitcher. He has a pitch mix that I really like. He's got the ability, again, to still throw hard, even though, again, he's been used as a reliever at times, a multi-inning reliever, a starter. So sometimes these pitch velocities aren't representative of what it'd be as a starter. But that being said, 95.6 mile per hour average fastball velocity has been pretty good. And even if he goes to a starter and it dips down a little bit, still having a 94, 95 mile an hour fastball as a starting pitcher is a really good spot to be. Now, it's not the best. It's not complete swing and miss. It's not Taj Bradley level hardness of throws, but you still can make that work as a starting pitcher. It's like with Griffin Jax, there was the case to be made. I can't remember if it was Saris' Stuff Plus or if it was just a Fangraphs article in general. I can't remember who made the case, but it was in the 2024 offseason that Griffin Jax should be stretched to a starter because his stuff played up so much that even if you extend him out and stretch him out to being a starting pitcher, his stuff on his pitches is still going to be nasty enough that hitters are still going to have a tough time with it, even though, some relievers are good because they couldn't stretch out over 5 innings, but in a 2-inning stretch, 1-inning stretch, they're very effective. And I think Rojas fits that same mold where even though his stuff plays up in smaller settings, I think his stuff still has the potential to play over the longer part. Now, he does have to watch the walks. He has an 18.3% walk rate. And over the course of being a starting pitcher, again, when you wear down, is your command going to wear down as well? And not just walks. Are you also going to leave mistake pitches? Are you going to be in that boat? Things like that. And in a way, it's kind of like the guy who the Twins traded for to get Rojas and Louis Varland, a guy who had some, was able to throw the fastball hard, had some command issues, had some issues with throwing the ball over the plate, and then eventually converted to being a reliever and was very good, but still had some stuff to hang around as a starter. And I think Rojas, on a talent level, has more talent than Varland. And it's why the Twins traded Rojas for Varland, because of the talent level of Rojas. And I think if you look at value, if Rojas stays as a starter, not that you need to quote unquote win the trade, but it certainly is a lot more beneficial to the value you get of having a starting pitcher. Trading a starting pitcher for a reliever, you're just going to get more value out of that because that starting pitcher is going to pitch more innings for your franchise. So I do think Kendry Rojas can be an effective starting pitcher at some point. I still think that he can be. The problem, again, is the Twins have really given him, and I don't know what those conversations are internally. Maybe they've given him a better direction than I have seen. But from what the Twins have done, it doesn't really look like there's much direction. Is he a long-term starter? Is he a reliever? Is he a long reliever? It feels like the Twins have wanted to keep him stretched out in case they need him to be a starter, but they don't trust him enough to have him be a starter at the big league level. And I just don't get why that's the case, because it feels like the Twins are kind of dipping their toe into making Rojas a reliever. And if you're going to do that, just rip the Band-Aid off and do it. That's what they did with Joan Duran. They just told him, you're a reliever. If you want to be on the big league club, you have to be a reliever. And they just kept him as a closer because he came in, was awesome right away. And they're like, yeah, man, you're awesome. We're not going to move you out of that role. And I think Rojas could fit that mold, but the Twins need to give Kendry Rojas direction. And whether they've told him internally, I'm sure they have, but in terms of outward, what is that role going to be? If you are going to be a reliever, be a high-end reliever that pitches 1 inning and throws the ball hard and is super effective. If you're going to be a longer reliever, if you're going to be somebody if you're going to be a pitcher who's going to pitch multiple innings per outing, then be a starter and go 4 to 5 innings, take that Simeon Woods-Richardson role and see where you go from there. But the problem is the Twins have been in the middle where sometimes they want him to do one end and sometimes they want him to do the other. But what's the future here? If Rojas is going to be a starter, put him as a starter. The Twins need depth in the starting rotation because as much as Bailey Ober is tracking towards coming back, the Twins are still an injury away from being right back in the same spot. And that being said, and I've enjoyed what I've saw out of Paredes starting in the Twins rotation as kind of a fill-in and taking on that Simeon Woods-Richardson role of, hey, just give us 4 to 5 solid innings. We'll take it from there. Just keep us in the ball game. I think Kendry Rojas could do that as well. I think he could fit very well in that Simeon Woods-Richardson role of, like, we're not asking a lot of innings, but just be effective over 4 to 5, keep us in the game. And I think you could do that with Rojas. But the problem is the Twins have been in the middle, and it's not just a Derek Shelton thing. It's been an organization thing, considering Rojas got sent down after being the opener, making his second career start against the Dodgers last week. And then they sent him down, and then they had him pitch 3 innings in an outing for the Saints. So, like, I don't understand exactly what the Twins are doing with Rojas and what the plan is. I'm sure there is a plan, but I'm very confused as to what it is. It's not quite clear from the outside looking in. So anyway, Kendry Rojas, even if he is moved to the bullpen this year, I still think can be a very effective starting pitcher long-term, but the Twins need to commit to something for 2026, and you can figure out 2027 in 2027. All right, we are going to wrap up the show and talk about Ryan Kreidler and why he needs to be the Twins' everyday shortstop until Kalin Culpepper gets to the big league club. We talk about that and more after this. Ryan Kreidler needs to be the Twins' everyday shortstop until Kalin Culpepper is called up. So with Kalin Culpepper, with what he can do, he's going to be up here soon, I believe. I think that you are going to get with Culpepper a everyday shortstop, somebody who could be there and somebody who can be your guy. But in the meantime, he's only played 1 game for AAA. And he went 0 for 4 on Sunday with a strikeout. It's going to take him like a week or two just to get back into form. And I think the Twins do need to be patient with that. But that being said, as we talked about on yesterday's show, everything is fit for Kalin Culpepper to be here. There is an opening at shortstop for him to take and run with. You've moved Brooks Lee to third. You've moved Royce Lewis to first. You have your spot. Keyshaw has been moved to right field because, you know, when Kalin Culpepper gets to play shortstop, you are going to have and you are going to need Ryan Kreidler to play a lot of second base for you. And it opens up Kreidler to bounce around. But that being said, in the meantime, I don't understand why Kreidler is still kind of bouncing around. I don't understand why he is I don't understand why he's not just playing shortstop every single day. I don't understand why Tristan Gray is playing shortstop at all. And this is no knock on Tristan Gray as a whole. I think for what you've gotten out of a utility man from a hitting standpoint has been fine. His stat line hasn't been great as of late, but he's came up in some big moments. And I think overall his defense at second base has been fine. He's a +1 outs above average at second base. So, like, I think he's been okay at second. He's been okay at third. It's just been shortstop where he's been a -7 at shortstop this season when it comes to outs above average. He just has not been a good big league shortstop. And why the Twins keep playing him there is just costing them games. If you're going to do that, then why'd you move Brooks Lee off of short? Because Brooks Lee still could have done that same level of production at shortstop. Shortstop is one of the biggest positions in the field. It's shortstop, catcher, center field. Those are like the 3 big defensive positions you need to have a good defender at. And usually you have Byron Buxton there playing center field. The Twins have had okay catching production defensively from Vic Caratini, especially in ABS. But now at shortstop, obviously Kalin Culpepper is the future. But in the intermediate, Ryan Kreidler has been a very good outs above average. He's been above 0. He's been a plus defender at one of the league's toughest defensive positions. Why are we rotating him? Now, I understand Buxton has been day-to-day. They assume he's going to come back. There's no IL stint imminent as of recording of this podcast for Byron Buxton. So I get Kreidler needing to play center field every once in a while, but I wouldn't play him in center field until Kalin Culpepper gets here. Your backup center fielder needs to be Cody Clemens, or it needs to even be Luke Keyshaw. Now, I know Keyshaw is still learning right field, and maybe you don't want to also throw him into a much more demanding position of center field. So I get that, but I think Keyshaw has the speed to at least be an okay center fielder and at least run some balls down in the gap. and go from there. But I think Cody Clemens has been a +2 outs above average in center field as well. He's been just a +1 at second base. So make Cody Clemens play center field. I know he's not going to be the best center fielder in all of baseball, but I'd rather have a good shortstop and figure out the rest than put a really bad defensive shortstop. You saw it last night. There were just a couple plays that ate up Tristan Gray at shortstop, got extra base runners on. And with this Twins bullpen, you can't afford extra base runners. Now, the Twins bullpen, the Twins pitching staff as a whole has not been done justice. I mean, they've been bad, but it certainly hasn't helped that the defense has been bad behind them. And one of the ways to make your defense better is to have Ryan Kreidler be your everyday shortstop until Kalin Culpepper gets here. When Culpepper gets here, use Kreidler as your backup center fielder, and then everything's a lot more easy. But in the intermediate, put Tristan Gray at second base, where he's a plus defender. Keep Luke Keyshaw in right field, where he's been a 0 outs above average in a very small sample size. And then in center field, you have Cody Clemens. And I know it's not the most ideal fit, but it's a lot better situation than putting Tristan Gray at shortstop. That's just the thing. Sometimes, I'm going to use an extreme example here. They've said in politics, foreign policy is about trying to achieve the second worst outcome. You want to avoid the worst outcome at all costs, and sometimes that means you have to have the second worst outcome. And in this Twins defensive alignment, the worst outcome is Tristan Gray playing shortstop. So if you move Kreidler to shortstop and just put him there every day, you don't have to worry. And Kreidler's been hitting, by the way. We talked about him yesterday hitting. So it's not like, we can only play him against righties. We can only play him against lefties. We can just put him in every day. Even if he's not hitting for you, his production as a shortstop defensively outweighs anything else, because that is such an important position for your defense to have. And everything else kind of builds out from there. Cody Clemens can play center field. Luke Keyshaw plays right field. And then you have at second base, Tristan Gray. And then you go from there. And then you could have Keyshaw go to second base and then Austin Martin play some right field or something like that. The point is, I rather would have Ryan Kreidler starting at shortstop every day and figure the rest of my defense out from there than the alternative of kind of rotating between Gray and Kreidler and all the like. You need Ryan Kreidler to be your everyday shortstop, and things just build out from there. And that's where it ends up being beneficial for the Twins, is having a guy in that spot who could be helpful and who is a good defender at that spot, and not just a bad defender in Gray, but really one of the league's worst in terms of outs above average as a shortstop. And shortstop's a tough position. So put Tristan Gray at an easier spot in second base where he has been successful. Put your players in a position, put your fielders in a position to succeed. And that starts with Kreidler at short, then move Clemens to center, where he's been just as good of a center fielder, if not better, than he has been a second baseman. I know that's probably, again, in a smaller sample size, and he's more comfortable at second base, I'm sure. But this is only for like a week or two. And I'd much rather put Clemens out of position than put Gray out of position. And then once Kalin Culpepper gets here, you have your shortstop, and now Kreidler can play second base, or he could be the backup center fielder when Buxton needs the DH or needs a day off, or whatever. It opens up Kreidler to be a better spot for you, and then it kind of limits Tristan Gray's role. And as we talked, maybe Tristan Gray is the casualty when Kalin Culpepper is ready. But then all of a sudden, your infield defense gets really good if you have Kalin Culpepper, Brooks Lee has been nice as a third baseman, made a couple nice plays yesterday at the hot corner. You have your left side of your infield taken care of. The right side of the infield gets better when you can have Kreidler against lefties, Clemens against righties. That's a good second base platoon. And then first base with Royce Lewis, all of a sudden, and again, Royce is a work in progress at first base, but I overall will think he will develop. And then you have an infield defense that you can feel good about, and Kreidler can play some outfield for you as well and be useful there. But then you have Keyshaw, who's better as a right fielder right now, the numbers say, than he has been as a second baseman. You have Byron Buxton in center, and then you kind of figure out left field depending on your matchups with Austin Martin or Trevor Larnach. And again, you have an outfield potentially with Martin, Buxton, and then Keyshaw. That can cover a lot of ground and be beneficial as well. The Twins defense has been bad, but there is a way you can squint and see it getting marginally to substantially better once they just kind of have shortstop figured out with Kalin Culpepper. But again, it's going to take a week or two. So Ryan Kreidler needs to be playing every single game at shortstop until proven otherwise. All right, that does it for today's show. Thanks for tuning in and listening to Locked On Twins. Make sure you subscribe and follow to get all of the latest episodes, including what we'll be talking about tomorrow, following, again, this series with the Houston Astros. So you can find me on X at BombCJ30. And remember, if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Twins ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedontwins.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio for your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB. See ya.